Amazing. Okay. We're being recorded and you're spotlit. And in a moment, I assume I will also be spotlit. Just waiting. Morning, Neil. It is nice. We don't have huge turnout this morning, but two people that I know are on camera. Good morning, Matthias. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
And what else do I want to say? And I'm going to remute you, Matthias. Oh, well, just welcome, Roma. I'm so glad to be here with you. Let me share with others who you are, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Great.
And for those who were here previous days, welcome back. Welcome to day 3. All right. No, that's not what I want to look at. This is what I want to look at. Okay. Roma Norriss is a relationship-focused parenting consultant and a mother of 4 with over 15 years experience, having worked with thousands of parents using a trauma-informed therapeutic approach. Her specialty is turning around scratch your eyes out hard family situations where nothing else has worked. Once dubbed the Nigella of the parenting world, I don't think I know who that is.
No, you guys might not know Nigella. She's
Italian.
She's a TV cook, and she's just really sensual and sexy and has long black curls. Does anybody know Nigella? Nigella Lawson. She's wonderful.
Yeah, not even know. Okay, must be an Italian thing. You know, I don't watch television, so Julio, can you kick out the note taker? Note taker's already gone. Okay, I'm going to read the rest. She can be cited at a naughty red dress, but generally spends most of her time coaching internationally from her bed in pajamas. She's warm, playfully wise, and somehow has the answers to your life. Her upcoming book, The Connected Parenting Phrasebook, will be out later this year. And we're going to be talking about parenting as activism. So welcome, Roma. So glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for putting this on. It's really wonderful, these conversations.
Yeah, the first 2 days have been fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you should get the replay. Oh, no. Note taker is still here. Sorry. Remove. Don't report. Okay. I'm back. So before we hop into parenting as activism, how did you... No, your note taker keeps coming back. Do you know anything about what's going on?
Oh.
What a nuisance. Okay, well, we've got...
Is it to do with me?
Yeah, it's you.
Oh. Can I don't know how to...
Yeah, a lot of people don't know how to...
disable
how
that.
to deal with... how to disable their...
I'm so sorry.
AI note takers.
Is it interfering with you?
Yeah. I'll just ask Julio, just have your mind up, have your eye out. It just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back. So, but yeah, before we get into parenting as activism, just tell us, like, how did you become a parenting consultant, and what's your special approach? Just like a little bit about you in general.
Through trial and tribulation, as many of us do. I actually had already been working with parents. I studied midwifery from when I was quite young, and I'd been working with parents in different roles. But it wasn't until I had my son and we went through a very difficult period, and he ended up quite traumatized by the age of 3. Through a series of events, and was in a really bad way. And so, I was desperate, as parents are in that kind of situation. You get very much ostracized by your community because people judge you if your child is really off track. And that nobody has any answers. You can go through the kind of usual pathways, but any parent who's got any significant challenges will tell you there's really not any useful help on offer out there unless you get very, very lucky. So we did all the normal things, and I just happened to be trawling the internet late at night, and I came across the approach from Hand in Hand Parenting, which is based
Oh.
in California. Are you familiar with them?
Yes, yes, yes. I actually spoke to the founder about being on this show last year.
Okay,
And
great.
yeah,
Patty, she's
yeah,
wonderful, and
I
I,
love
you know,
her.
I really owe the um, okayness of my children and my sanity to Patty Whitford. She has pioneered this really extraordinary approach to parenting, and she's not the only person. There is a movement of people who are thinking deeply about how to raise the next generation. But I feel like I really lucked out when I came across Hand in Hand Parenting that night. And so I trained as one of their instructors, and sure enough, got my child back into a settled, happy, curious state again, and out of this kind of horrendous, just kind of dysregulation and distress on repeat, which had been going on for some years by that point. And yeah, I have been working with parents ever since, and it's been, I think, over 10 years now. Um, yeah.
So my first introduction to personal growth was through parenting books. In
Okay.
over 30 years ago, I was working in childcare. I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, and I was having all kinds of unpleasant interactions with Julio. Roma's note taker keeps coming back, and I keep removing it, and that just doesn't work because I'm supposed to be with Roma. So it's coming back at least once a minute. So I'm really requesting that you look and remove it right away. Are you here, Julio, or are you on a break? Because I see it's still here.
Let me know if there's anything I can do
Thank
from
you.
my end.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I think there is something you can do, and I have no
Okay.
idea what it is.
No, I didn't even
so
set this up.
so
I don't
so
know
so we
anything about it really.
okay,
Um,
great. Thank you, Julio.
okay. Thanks.
Um, so yeah, so I was working with kids, and I was elementary school age kids, and I was having terrible experiences. They were bullying each other, they were hitting me, it was not going
Mm.
as I had hoped and dreamed and imagined. And uh I was not finding resources for teachers, but I noticed that there were some resources for parents.
Oh, well done.
Yeah. And actually I went through even after I left childcare, I continued reading parenting books somewhat compulsively for about 10-15 years. It took over. Yeah, I like to say when I was a kid, I read teen novels obsessively, teen romance novels. Then I took a break from reading for about 5 years, and then I read parenting books obsessively for another 15 years until I had foster children of my own
Oh, wow.
in my 30s, and used some books for sure. And then when the kids were gone, then I moved on to other things. But well, then I moved on
Mm.
to Harry Potter books. Um, but yeah, there's parenting is such a playground for really learning and getting the skills.
Yes, because you have such a motivation to do the work if you're a parent. It's hell if you don't, for a start. You know, you've got an immediate feedback loop. And also, we love our children more than anything else. They're the strongest motivation. And yeah, I think that is one of the reasons why parents are on the leading edge of activism, because we're also on the leading edge of personal development, leadership, self-inquiry for that reason exactly. It's that potent combination of love and fear, I suppose. Somewhere between the two is a very powerful place.
Mm, mm.
Mm,
Yeah, we've got a push and a pull.
mm.
And so, yeah, so, you're making the connection. How is the act of parenting itself, not educating our kids on global issues, but just the day-to-day work of raising children? How does that constitute activism?
Yeah, I think quite often I talk about parenting as activism quite a lot, and people misunderstand that to be like, oh, sure, you can teach your kids to recycle, or you can talk about global politics at the dinner table, or um, I don't know, take them on marches. And yes, of course, you can do all of those things, but actually, you don't need to because every moment that you spend tending to your children, every joyful, tiresome, exhausting late night, early morning, mundane, magical, all of it, every moment that you give your attention to your child, you are forging the future. You are building the brains of tomorrow. Um, it has such a profound impact on how we shape society, um, just through the very, very everyday things that you probably mostly take for granted as a parent. And the reason for that is that all of the systems that govern the current climate that we see now, the institutions, the politics, the economics, all of it is underpinned by where we have currently gotten to human in the evolution of human consciousness. It's our
I,
thought forms that are driving all of those things. Go on.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. I was going to say something about Hitler, and then I was thinking about thought forms. But yeah, it just makes me think of two things that I've read about how Hitler was parented.
Right.
Um, one, uh, I'll share them in the order I read them. So,
Mhm.
one of the first parenting books I read uh, was Liberated Parents, Liberated Children by, oh goodness, I used to know the authors' names. They also wrote How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids
Oh,
Will
yes,
Talk,
yes, yes.
which was even more of
Um,
a bestseller.
I forget the
But
name now, but yes, very,
yeah,
very well known.
their first book was called Liberated Parents, Liberated Children.
Okay.
And
Mm.
there's a story of one of the moms. There's an ongoing story of her applying uh, listening and speaking communication skills to one of her sons. And there's a scene where she's tucking him into bed, and he says to her, after she's been doing the things the liberated way for a while, he says to her, I think if Hitler had had you as a mom, he might not have turned out to be Hitler.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like super moving for her. And
Mm.
then later I didn't read the book directly. I read about it in a Gloria Steinem book, but there's a book called For Their Own Good by Alice Miller
Mm.
about the parenting advice and systems that were widespread in Germany
Right.
in the turn of
Yes.
the 20th century that were very much about strictness and control,
Yes.
and that Hitler was raised, I believe, by a nanny who was implementing
Mm.
those structures. Which, I mean, if a parent is told how to do things, some of their intuition will shine through anyway. But if somebody's a professional, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
The current president of the United States, there's some information and as well as some speculation about abusive parenting.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and um, really a number of people in leadership positions who have used those positions abusively.
Yes.
um, we can trace something in their upbringing.
Mm. Mm.
Many people in Germany, and actually maybe it was brought up in Austria, in the West in that
Mhm.
era, were brought up under this theory and did not go on to, mastermind the extermination of 10 million people.
Yes.
And, the same person with a more nurturing upbringing also might not.
Yeah. I mean, it's the experiences that the early experiences that individuals have, who end up in leadership roles, but it's also just the sort of like more persistent culture
Culture.
that those individuals are stepping into or out of. And um, yeah, there's another wonderful book called Parenting for a Peaceful World by Robin Grill, who has basically mapped the sort of anthropological history of parenting, and shown that any time in multiple different civilizations when there has been a movement towards either um, better parenting practices or more support for children's education, there has been an equivalent movement within 20 years, so within one generation, towards sustainability and democracy, either or both.
Wow.
And yeah, he speaks about pre-Nazi Germany and the autocratic kind of um, I mean, we were doing it here in the UK as well at that time. This sort of disciplinarian approach to parenting, routine feeding, and um, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of mentality, leaving babies to cry out in prams at the end of the garden. And I think in Germany, they were hanging babies on the backs of doors while they went out to work. So there's obviously the influence of industrialization. Um, but yeah, uh, we just we have a very potent thing in our hands when we hold the future of consciousness, because it's like a little spark that, if nurtured in exactly the right way and um, kind of let free, it has the potential, again, within one generation, if there were enough of a global movement in terms of how parents were thinking about their approach to parenting, it really has the potential to spark something quite vast, and
Oh.
quite immediate. And you know, when people get together to think about solving some of the problems that humanity faces on the planet right now, we think about, different interventions that we could make for different ends. And this is almost like tipping the dominoes, and a a whole cascade of influence would come from letting those sparks fly. Yeah.
I like domino sparks. Wait.
Too many metaphors, getting them all mixed up now, but I think hopefully you're following what I'm saying.
I think so. It's so funny. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody, and I was talking about scaffolding and learning, and I was talking about building a bridge in communication. He was like, "Is a bridge a scaffold? Is a scaffold a bridge?" I'm like, "Oh no."
Oh dear.
Oh my goodness, what have I done? Because I was going to say, well, a scaffold is a form of a bridge, which in engineering is not true. Anyway, or maybe it is. Anyway, Um, so share a little bit about the approach. I don't even know what adjective you would use. I mean,
Right.
some people say in the 90s, people were saying things like child-centered, but I don't
Mm.
like what is, you know,
Yeah, so I tend to refer to myself these days as a relationship-focused parenting consultant,
great.
and I think uh, the relational emphasis is where it's at for me, and I suppose also the somatic, kind of trauma-informed approach. So we are looking at the underlying reasons for children's behaviours, and we are responding to their bodies with our bodies. So it's not this kind of heady, there was also a movement in gentle parenting that got very heady, and there was a lot of negotiation and talking
Mhm.
about feelings and needs. And um, I
And
think,
children are very corporeal. They're not very, I
right?
mean, verbal is always secondary, even for a verbal child.
Exactly. So play based is wonderful, body based, and really making use of the body's innate capacity for healing. Children and babies and children are really, really good at this. They do it automatically all the time. They bring themselves back into balance. And often, what we term as bad behavior is actually really just them pushing for connection. They're pushing for the relationship. And
Mhm.
either your attention has lapsed, or there's been a rupture in the relationship, or just enough upset has accumulated in their system so that even if your attention is really good and you're really present, they can't really feel you, they can't let you in. So they are always trying to right themselves through giving us signals, which they do through their behavior, and they do that brilliantly. And
Mhm.
you can rely on a child to seek you out for connection, in one way or another. Even if they're withdrawing, even if they're pushing you away, it's still a signal. And they do this noisily, they do it angrily, they make sure that they get our attention.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's just we have all kinds of really unhelpful narrative around what those behaviors mean and how we should respond, and that's what really gets in the way most of the time.
Mm. Yeah, I'm thinking of a kid. Um, there was one particular kid that I worked with who he was in kindergarten and he loved to provoke, he loved to test. Um, and we had some staff changes, and each time we had a staff change, his behavior would escalate. Um,
Mm,
and his his parents, well, his mother was extremely anxious.
mhm,
His father was pretty like even keeled, but it was just very clear that he was asking for a particular thing, and it was attention, period.
right. Yeah. Yep.
And it,
Yep. And they do that so well. And there's always a really good reason. There's always, when you dig deep enough, something that drives the behavior.
yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. Um, yeah, I'm wondering. Sorry. When I'm silent like this, I'm like, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, I in conflict in general, you're just so much more effective if you have a decent guess of what the other person is after.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And if we can stay regulated and centered and connected to our own bodies, if we can keep our nervous systems in the most useful state for relating, which is that kind of ventral vagal social engagement mode. Um, I mean, that's job done. If you can just do that, great. You don't have any
Yeah,
other problems.
I was super intrigued when you said somatic, and and then you went into somatic interactions. But I was thinking, gosh, if I had somatic self-connection tools when I was working with kids and when I had foster kids,
Yeah.
like what a different world that would have been.
Hmm.
Because kids re-trigger so much in us.
Absolutely, which is why parenting is such a deep personal development path, as we already mentioned. You will get triggered multiple times a day when you are with children, and that's because they push for the relationship and we don't always have it to give. It's because,
Mm.
parents are an oppressed group and you have too much on your plate as a parent. So you're, likely at one point or another to be under resourced. Um, and it's because of their age, and they sometimes trigger our early experiences. So very often you can go into a certain reaction with a child or a certain dynamic just based on their age, because something happened to you at the age that they're currently at. Um, but also their mannerisms and the way they speak and the way they will speak words that are passed down in families, in a young person's voice, and all of these things trigger us. Um, and so it's a really, really hard path to keep yourself well regulated in the face of that, and to keep doing the work to differentiate between what's yours and what's theirs, and to know even when you're triggered. Because sometimes we're just running with something. We think we're right. You can go quite far with that, and yeah, it requires a lot, and it requires much more spaciousness than most parents have access to, and much more support. Um, and yeah, for this reason, I would love that we create a world where the work of parenting is really deeply revered and supported appropriately, financially and culturally. You know, most parents are so isolated, and there's absolutely no financial compensation. It's an impossible task that most people have on their plate. So yeah, I would.
Inside the current economic structures. Yeah.
Currently, yes, and I would imagine that, if we were to start making changes that really support, um, humanity to thrive, that is gonna be one really essential piece that we'll start seeing a shift with. Mm. Parents
Mm.
and teachers.
Mm. So this feels like the very beginning of a conversation to me, and the time. So Roma, share with us about your free gift.
Oh, okay, I think we've given you, is it
I can check.
hacks for busy parents?
Hacks for
Ninja
busy parents
moves?
ebook. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, something like Ninja Moves for busy parents. It's basically a summary of, the most useful tools that you can apply in your family when you are really under it, when you don't have good attention, when you don't have much time, and you just need to really hone the attention that you're giving to make it the most effective that it possibly can be. And what I love about, these tools is that you can apply just a little bit and see an immediate shift. Or you can really think deeply about how to implement it into your family, and you can do a profound recovery of everybody's nervous systems and
Mm.
get yourselves to a better place. But yeah, that's a really good place to start.
Um, so when you were saying you implement one hack and it makes a huge difference right away, I'm remembering there used to be books called Your 6 Year Old, Your 7 Year Old, etc., by Giselle and Ames. See, this time I remember the
Hmm.
names. Um, and there was a book, Your 6 Year Old, that had a tip of count to five. When you want a kid to do something, count to five, and you don't even have to have a consequence. You just count to 5. And I started doing that, and the world changed. Like there were, you know, 5 or 6 kids I was having difficulty with, and it worked on,
Mhm.
you know, 4 or 5. It worked on all but 1 or something, right? Like it was
Right.
working 90% of the time. And
Yeah.
and it didn't solve all the problems, but
Mhm.
the solving a problem some of the time was so life-changing when
Right.
you're
Yeah.
just in despair. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. All right. We have we have time for some questions from people in the audience, people who are here. What would you like to hear from Roma? And if people write in the chat, it takes so long that I get impatient. I don't believe they're really going to do it. So let's check and see if anybody's got a question. I think Neil is typing something.
Yeah, feel free to make use of me.
You see what Neil has asked? Can you speak more to
Can you
body centered? Okay.
okay. Can you speak more to the body-centered aspect of working with children, Neil says. Sorry, I'm doing your job for you, Alice.
No, it's your job. I was doing it for you. Anyway, go ahead.
um, the body-centered aspect of working with children. So I guess working with um, working with the very sort of bodily level that children operate on. Children have fabulous embodiment. They are in their bodies, unless they've had a very stressful experience very early on in their lives, which does happen. Most kids are really right there, and they operate through their body, and they have a very good connection to their bodies. Most kids do, and so they will express quite clearly if they don't like something. They will express just as clearly if they do like something. Um, they will release pent up stress through their bodies through laughter. Kids laugh as much as they possibly can if we support that, right? If we don't tell them to be quiet and sit still and stop being silly, stop showing off, they also will really make use of crying, raging, tantruming, which is extremely healthy and something that we tend to um, make wrong in our culture. We tend to shame children for doing that or scold them or um, try to make them quiet because we just can't bear the noise. When actually they're doing something to rebalance themselves. They're trying to offload this pent up ball of stress that's built up in their bodies. Um, Neil says, I never thought of tantruming as healthy and saw it as wrong as a parent. And yeah, and that's okay. We're all, this is the thing, the brutal thing about being a parent is that you're always going to know more than you knew. And so we learn things and we look back on earlier times with our kids and we feel regret. And I have enough of that myself. It's very sad when you notice ways that you could have done something different in your parenting that might have had a better effect. Um, and it's okay because actually it's never too late. I mean, how many of you would love your parents now to get you in a more profound way? Even now, the relationship could just take a, a positive shift and it would feel much better to you. So, firstly, it's not too late. Secondly, you can only do what you knew at the time. Um, but yes, yeah, tantruming, if we can support that without making our kids wrong, without making ourselves wrong, um, and keeping our own nervous system regulated, kids piggyback on our brains and our nervous system. So if we are offering a grounded, regulated, playful, curious, delighted, still nervous system to a child who is raging or despairing or distressed in any way, that is a really, really profound thing that we're doing for them, because we are wiring their brains for um, the ability to self-regulate as they grow. Um, Very often we meet their dysregulation with our own, and unfortunately, that wires a, you know a propensity for dysregulation that becomes our go-to in moments of stress. And I'm sure many of us as adults now are working to undo that wiring. And it can be done, thankfully, because humans are incredibly resilient and built for recovery. But if we can make use of that potential in our young children right from an early age, um, yeah, kids get very, very good at shedding what they don't need. And this allows them to stay regulated and sane and think clearly and make better decisions. And it also prevents them from the kind of crippling impact of shame and fear and all of these emotions that get very stuck in the system when it's got nowhere to go, when we are told time and time again to put that stuff away. um, it makes us all a piece of work to be around when we have a lot of that stored emotion in our system, because we are much easier to get triggered. um, we are much less straightforward in our communications. We find it harder to really claim what we want, or to say things in a more direct way. We become frightened of asserting ourselves. So yeah, we are building nervous systems through working with the body. Have I answered your question, Neil? Okay, great.
I have a follow-up question though. Well, actually, wait. Yeah, I'm gonna ask my follow-up question. I'm like, should I see if someone else has a question? Unless somebody has a burning question. If you've got a question, you can write it in while I'm asking my follow-up question.
Hmm.
So what do you do with a tantrum?
Right, good question. Well, ideally, you move in close, and if at the very least you could stay calm and avoid adding to your child's distress, that is a real win. So if you can avoid shutting it down, if you can avoid trying to fix it, very often we're like, okay, I'll make a different kind of toast or whatever. But actually, if we can just like hold it like, oh, you didn't like the way I cut the toast. Okay. And we know that it's not really about the toast. We know the toast is just a pretext. We know that they're working on this like accumulation of stress in their system. And so we don't get too involved with the toast. And then also just being kind and real and close. Like, sweetheart, you're so upset. I'm not going to go anywhere. I think we can work this out. Um,
So
and just
really,
allowing them. Yeah.
so really just actually getting the communication is what I'm hearing. Like getting,
Yeah.
you wanted a different toast and you're really upset.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's a great communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Very
and if
simple.
you actually can't tolerate the noise,
Hmm. I mean, if you can, I would say that's a real indication that you might want to do some self inquiry, some somatic work, find a somatic therapist, for example. Work on the feeling that comes up when you hear that kind of noise and fuss. Because probably my guess would be that when you would have made a noise like that as a child, it would have been shut down or scolded, or you would have gotten in a lot of trouble. So there's fear coming up for you when your kid gets dysregulated. That's most often the reason. Sometimes people have sensory reasons if you're on the spectrum, or for whatever
Sensitive.
reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would really recommend just putting in earplugs, wearing noise cancelling headphones if you need to. If that's what you have to do in order to stay present with your child and not react towards them, do it until you get to a place where you can shift that and move in even closer.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, um, there was one more thing I was going to say about that. Uh, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
It's fine. And we have two questions, and
Great.
actually I keep thinking we have until 45, but we can go till 10 of, including some other things. So James, there was a question in the chat, which I'm going to take before yours, which was, oh, hey, two more. Everybody wants to know about parenting. Okay. Go ahead. Do you see Julia's question in
Yeah,
chat?
that's a great question from Julia. So, can you tell us more about what you mean about how some parents intellectualize with their kids too much and what you would do instead? Yeah, that's one of the other things that we can do when our kids are either tantruming or even just protesting. Doesn't matter what age they are. Quite often we do this with older kids as well. We get into reasoning, negotiating. Well, you had a sleepover last week, so I don't think it's a good idea to have one every weekend. Or whatever the thing is that's going on in our mind, we get too involved with the toast, right? Um, Instead, you just want to hold the limit, which is no sleepover tonight, darling. Mm-mm. No, I can see you really want that. You're really upset with me, I know. Yeah, we're not going to do a sleepover tonight. I'm so sorry. Yeah, tell me how upset you are. And just let them go and go and go. And you're trying to be with their body, with their expressions, with their flailing around and their upset and their messiness. And you're also trying to be with your body, and you're noticing, okay, I'm all right. Yeah, I know that this is the right choice. Or sometimes you might be like, I don't know why I'm setting this limit. I don't know if I even care whether they have a sleepover. And you kind of, and then that's a moment that that might be an indication you need to take some time out for yourself to regulate. So I don't want to talk about this right now, darling. I do want to hear more later. I'm just going to go and take care of myself. I'll be back in 5 minutes. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's another question
From
in the
Hannah.
chat, and then James.
What can you do when you see another parent use methods that enforce certain coping mechanisms rather than relieve them? So, Hannah, are you talking about when you see another parent being overbearing with a child, scolding, shouting, shaming, that kind of thing? Is that what you mean? I'm going
Yeah,
to. Oh, thank you.
sometimes yes, but sometimes also other things. Yeah,
Right.
it's a whole range of things that I sometimes observe.
It's a good question, and I've generally myself had a policy since I felt like I had capacity for this, and I didn't always. I tend to step in if I see a parent who is dysregulated and causing distress to a child, and it doesn't matter whether I know them or not. I've done this in public a number of times. And I will only do it if I feel resourced enough to really hold it, because what they will hopefully do is turn their anger towards me. And I would rather they did that than take it out on a child. I don't recommend that everybody does this. You want to be sure that you can stay regulated in the face of an angry grown up. And um, I think if we all had this as an ethic in our society, it would prevent a lot of damage being done with children. If we just had an absolute zero tolerance, like, okay, I can see that you're really struggling, but I'm not going to let you do this because this is a child. Absolutely, if it were physical violence, I would step in, but even verbal aggression, I would make a stand for. If it were somebody using a bit less of a kind of oppositional approach to their child, I mean, obviously that's completely up to you whether you open up a conversation another time and say, you know, just with curiosity and kindness, like, hey, what was going on for you when you said this thing or when your child was doing that thing? I could see you were struggling, or yeah, just, I mean, starting with a conversation, or even, I suppose, asking whether they were willing, open for a conversation would be more respectful. You don't want to be that person that kind of rides in there with your what's the word? Uh, my brain's gone completely blank, but you know that thing that people do that's really annoying. um, yeah, with your judgments, that's never going to be helpful. Parents have enough on their shoulders, and usually they're the harshest critics of themselves. So um, any intervention I would suggest doing with a lot of warmth, openness, curiosity. You want to make sure that you're regulated. You also want to maybe look at what it's bringing up in you, what you observed is touching in you, and maybe clear the decks before you go towards anybody with that stuff, because actually maybe you're triggered, maybe it reminded you of something in your own childhood or someone that you know in your life. Yeah, I'll leave it there for now, but thank you. That's a good question.
James.
Super useful. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Hannah. James, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. It's hard for me to use my keyboard here, so please forgive me for.
No,
I'm
we love it
wondering.
when people ask questions out loud. It's the best.
Okay, great.
But Julio, can you spell like James? I suddenly can't see him. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I've heard it said that we, as I investigate adult ADHD, that there's a suggestion that if a child's very, very early needs had been met in terms of the gaze and the attachment and the connection that that is wiring the brain, that ADHD might not even exist, and that leads me to wonder about the same thing with the presence of love when we look at or psychologists and researchers on the way the mind works suggest that addiction, is about the emptiness. And my comment earlier in the chat about addiction, I think certainly, and I love what you're talking about, that this is like a whole new concept to me. I didn't parent children, but I wonder if you have any thoughts about this thing about addiction. I can see positions of power and the acquisition of wealth as being just one more addictive behavior.
Absolutely.
They're trying to, where they're trying to get love,
Yes.
just like all addictions, fill up that
Yes.
emptiness. So, do you have any insights on that, or thoughts around that? General area?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I mean, I think as a species, we are not inherently greedy. We are not inherently prone to taking more than we need. We have arrived at this place of becoming, our widespread systems being very extractive and plundering of the earth's resources. Um, Effectively, because we are all seeking connection. It's connection that we really want. We don't need to have billionaires on the planet. We don't need, to amass wealth in the way that most people seem to be seeking. We actually just need to feel connected to ourselves and the people who love us. And yes, I think addiction is rife in the current state of consciousness. And that's very much driven by the places where we needed to be met when we were little. I absolutely agree with that. In terms of ADHD, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know. And I think there is, there's definitely an impact on brain differences. We know that trauma changes the way that the brain forms. Whether ADHD is driven by trauma, I don't know. I think some neurodivergents would actually find that offensive. And there are obviously some real genius qualities to those brain differences. So I don't know the answer to that, but I absolutely think that, we have the power to mold the brains of tomorrow. um, and yeah, I really, I really want to thank parents for the work that they do, because it's a thankless task, but it is. We are shifting towards a much more responsive parenting approach, and there are big shifts that have happened even in the last 10, 20 years. We are holding our babies closer. We are looking into their faces more. We're much more aware of feeding them responsively and listening to their cries and listening to their feelings, and giving them choices and all of that all of those types of things. So yeah, I actually feel quite hopeful about where we're going with all of this. We are a very stressed species right now. There is a lot of addiction driving all of our systems, and I don't think it's going to take an awful lot more to tip it in the right direction.
Wow.
Mm.
Thank you for that.
James,
I'm a long time in.
James, I'm so sorry. We're wrapping up.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Roma. I'm not seeing those trends. I'm seeing, but everybody, we've got a reminder in the chat, Roma's free gift. Thank you for your wonderful participation, your wonderful questions.
Yeah, thank you. You've all been great.
Thank you so much, Roma, for what you bring, for who you are, and just a delight to be together. And for the opportunity to imagine another way is just so fabulous. My being in the trenches with this is all over 20 years ago. Well, about, last foster son left, spring 2005. And so it's still so vivid for me, right? Like, oh, I wish I could have this, and oh, I would. Right. So,
yeah, thank you. Thank you for fostering those children, and thank you for all your experience and for putting this together, giving us a chance to have these conversations. Yeah, it's coming. We're on our way.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.